First, I go live on YouTube and then Instagram. Hey everyone, thank you for joining this live stream discussion with Dr. Tumi. I'm just going to go live on Instagram really quick and we can get started. Okay, we're good to go. All right, welcome to the Betterism podcast. It's your host, Lachey Taylor. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a very special show today. This is my first show where I'm actually having a discussion. I am collaborating with a really powerful woman going by the name of Dr. Tumi Johnson. She is a poet. She is a dancer. She is just absolutely amazing. She is a medical doctor and she niches holistic health. She has been raw vegan for over 13 years and she's just, sharing herself with us. And I'm super grateful. I'm getting ready to bring her on and we're going to get started. Hello, Dr. Toomey. How are you?
Hello, Lachey. It is so wonderful to be in circle, in gathering with you and everyone who is here in real time or future time.
Amazing. So, thank you again for being here with us. So, we're going to be discussing fruitarianism, women's health. I know that you have been disciplined in a way that many of us are on the journey to be like you are 13 years as a raw vegan and now you're currently in the watermelon washout. I know you were doing fruit prior to that. And how is that going? How's the watermelon washout going? How's that transition from the raw vegan lifestyle to now pivoting and focusing more on the fruits?
So, right before you hit play for this, I was just sharing with you that before Watermelon Washout, I'd never joined any Facebook groups, like participated. I'm very much an introvert, and it's funny because an integral part of the medicine I offer people is my dance performance. But for me, dancing and performing dance as healing um, is not necessarily an extrovert thing. That's just something that I do that I feel like I channel, but I'm quite private. And I share things on YouTube as a way to support people's healing. But in terms of getting into groups and being social parties, I don't do it until I saw an interview with, I think it was Jillian Berry interviewing Bobby Smith. And I just was so touched by Bobby's story and his authenticity and his energy. And so I watched a couple of videos of Bobby, and he just happened to be mentioning that he and this guy called Kev Ramon were going to start this watermelon washout. I'm all about synchronicities. I've been on this path of living foods for long enough that synchronicities are just part of my life. And literally, Lachey, I think a few days before I saw that announcement about watermelon washout, I'd gotten this strong communication from spirit that it's time. It's time to um, move to the next growth, to become even more myself, and that looked like fruits. Now I've been fruit-based raw vegan for 13 years. Fruit has been a staple. Um, but what spirit was calling me to do was do only fruit. And it didn't feel like fear, it felt like excitement. It felt like I'm ready, but how do I do this? And then Bobby Smith announces this, and I was like, a group, a Facebook group, like really? And I said, you know what? Just get over yourself and go. And it has been incredible. And I knew that I just wanted to do 30 days only of watermelon, not the 100 days. And in fact, I'll share this with you. When I saw that it was 100 days, I thought, oh, I shouldn't join. Like, it's not right for me to join if I know I only want to do 30 days. But Spirit also came to me and was like, look, these people are here to support you, and you can be a support to these people too. And it's not about how many days you do. Um, and so I got over myself, joined it, and I knew I didn't want to do just watermelon because I get access to the most incredible cherries in June. And I was like, I'm not passing that up. So I transitioned to all fruit about only fruit specifically about a week or 2 weeks before the watermelon washout started. And then the group Lachey has been so amazing in just keeping me grounded, keeping my eye on my vision, keeping me clear about my why, being in community with people who are wanting to release addictions and become more of themselves and be lights in this world. And that's really what it's about. It's more than the fruit. And that resonated so deeply with me. And then July 1st, I started my all watermelon, and I'll be doing that. My vision is to do that till the end of July. And then after that, up level from raw vegan to only fruit. If it calls to me, doing also like things like lettuce, but no salt, no oil, releasing all of that. And that, the salt and oil, I realized I had an addiction to, which is shocking. And I never would have said that. Uh, Salt, oil, and nuts. And I wasn't doing them even every day. It was maybe 2 or 3 times a week. But my reaction to them, Lachey, the fact that I was starting to use them as a way to suppress my emotions, the fact that I would feel dull and numbed the way bread used to do for me 13 plus years ago, told me that these things had become something that were preventing me from truly being in my light, from truly um, feeling the feels, feeling my emotions, learning from them, and healing through that work.
Now, I can see that. What I do admire though is that you went through the raw vegan journey for 13 years. You allowed yourself the transition, so to speak, to
Mm,
graduate to the fruit. Like you said, you felt like it was time. And
yes.
like if your greatest addiction is just the nuts, the oils and the seeds and and the salt, like that is okay, seeing how majority of what you're consuming the rest of the time is still living food, right? So it's like whatever doesn't necessarily serve you is still being cleansed because you have allowed your body the opportunity to clear those elimination pathways. You're still operating in a heavy vessel. But it is beautiful that at this point you're basically just evolving into fruitarianism. It's like you've done your time, so to speak, um, living the living food lifestyle, and it has served you very well. But now it's like you're getting ready to unlock a new level of your consciousness. So I think that amazing, and that's definitely something I that is something I aspire and am in the process of creating for myself. I am still in my transition. I'm finally getting past like the mental shackles of the standard American diet drug.
Mm,
Honestly, like I'm finally embracing the fact that number one, I am like an addict to it, and I can be far more conscious of my choices when it's in front of me compared to the opportunity to make a better choice. And now like that I have genuinely identified the stuff for what it actually is and my relationship with it and my intention to evolve and break the addiction. um, it's so much easier to open my heart up and to embrace the living food lifestyle, the raw food lifestyle, but also still doing it in a grace where it's like I'm not trying to also be perfect either. So if I have to eat a whole food plant-based cooked meal when I'm struggling with a craving, and as long as it doesn't have toxins in it, you know what I mean? As long as it doesn't have the overtly poisonous chemicals that people like to add to food to make it taste better or just out of convenience or whatever, that's okay. Because there are people in this life who have reversed illnesses, overcome obesity, and have done plenty of healing on whole food plant-based cooked meals never even knew what raw veganism was, just because they eliminated the 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 burgers and the tacos and the candies and all these things that sits on shelves with a multitude of toxic chemicals inside of them. So it's beautiful that it's like a long time coming, but it's like you allowed yourself as much time as you needed to before you were ready to evolve. Now, um, before you started your raw vegan journey, did you transition into it? Or was it just one of those things where you were just like, I have to do this, I want to do this, I feel called to do this? Did you stick with it when you made the choice? Did you struggle? Like, how was that?
Such a great question. And before I answer that, I love that you brought up this idea of evolution. And I think when we think of our health journey as evolution rather than shoulds, oh, I should be put in the blank here. I should be raw. I should be fruitarian or whatever. I should be birtharian, whatever it is. When you release the shoulds and move from a place of self-love and this constant listening to that still small voice, which means carving out time to listen to that still small voice, then life becomes what it's always supposed to be, which is a journey, not a destination. I never had in my view, even I think 10 years into raw veganism, that fruitarian, being fruit only, was my destination. Never. And let me be clear, I reversed everything I was struggling with, and I'll talk about what those were in a moment, on a fruit-based raw vegan diet that was about 99% raw. I'll never claim that I was fully raw because I was doing raw cashews, which are never, cashews are not raw. Um, Sometimes I would have nori, and I know that it was roasted, not like these little things. So I don't claim these labels, but I was overwhelmingly raw for 13 years and all vegan. Um, and suicidal depression, 40 pounds of excess weight, severe menstrual period pains, a disordered eating behavior, binge eating, out of control. Like anyone who struggles with disordered eating, you know what it does to your confidence and your mind. So, all of that, eczema throughout my skin, chronic asthma since I was a little girl, all gone on a plant foods diet. And as a physician, um, I've seen people on a whole food plant diet cooked reverse so many things. So it's not about perfection and it's not about should, it's about continuing to listen and honoring yourself where you are in your journey. If I had tried to be all fruit when I went raw in 2011, 2012, um, it would have been a disaster for mind, body, and soul. So I really believe in that. How did I do raw? This story. So I was a doctor working in, I finished my residency in internal medicine at NYU. I was starting to dance professionally at the time, had was about to join a dance company, and then I had the opportunity to go to West Africa. I'm originally from Nigeria, but I was called to go to Niger, which is a French-speaking country, for those of you who don't know, right above Nigeria in West Africa, and spent about a year there taking care of literally starving children and their mothers. Literally. Now, my training is in internal medicine. I take care of adults only. And part of the reason in medical school I chose to do internal medicine, Lachey, is because when I would see a sick child, I didn't have that distance that sometimes as a doctor you need to be like, okay, do this, this. I would just want to take that little baby in my arms and cry and cuddle. I didn't have professionalism with children, so to speak. But they needed a French-speaking doctor, and that was who I was. And so that's when I first got my real training in nutrition after medical school, after residency. Before that, it was, and I went to Vanderbilt Medical School, one of the best medical schools in the country. And I got great training on diagnosis and physical diagnosis and microbiology and all these things. But nutrition, And that is not uncommon. But after my residency, I got training in nutrition because I was going to be running nutrition clinics in West Africa. Went there to the desert, was there for a year with the children. And that's when I saw for the first time how literally just what you eat can be medicine or it can be poison. I got to see these children who are emaciated. You just give them food, the right food, and they would plump up. And something just clicked. I went back to New York City where I was living and I looked at my own diet. And at the time I was pescatarian. I'd been pescatarian since I was 13. I stopped eating animals because I'd seen a chicken get slaughtered and I was like, I want none of that. I want none of that. At the young age, I was like, I'm not eating animals. But I didn't think of fish as animals. So I was eating fish, a lot of dairy, and a lot of processed foods. And I'd been doing that until now, what I'm like 29, 30. And I thought it was a healthy diet, but I was struggling with all these health issues I talked about. And I started doing the research, more and more nutrition research. I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. I just dove in. And the thing is, Lachey, it's all there. If you do the research, it is there. The studies on whole food plant diet in reversing and preventing chronic disease, the fact that animal protein is a carcinogenic, the data is all there. And so truth is one of the biggest motivators. And I stopped. And I stopped eating animal products. And then as I dove in, I saw more and more stuff about raw. So I went to the first Woodstock Fruit Festival in 2011, met a guy called Dr. Doug Graham, who wrote a book called The 80-10-10 Diet, read the 80-10-10 Diet one night, just couldn't stop reading it, backed up all the science I'd been already researching, and I went overnight raw, fruit-based, low-fat raw. And it lasted for 7 beautiful days. Because then I came back to New York City. My boyfriend at the time picked me up, and he was a musician, beautiful soul, a drummer. Every day he started his breakfast with weed, drank like a fish. And my point with that is his vibration was not the vibration of living foods. And he took one look at me and he said to me, your eyes are way too bright. What happened to you? Your eyes are too bright. And that night, by the time we had connected, that night I was eating, what was it that night? We went to Japanese. I didn't eat fish, but I had like sushi with rice. And I say that story to say that this journey is way more than food. It's really about being truthful to yourself. And I was eating that sushi because I knew deep down inside that this relationship wasn't working. But I couldn't look at that. So I had to suppress those emotions. And that was me realizing, here's how I use food, processed food, cooked food to suppress emotions. And I knew that intellectually. I ended the relationship, moved to Paris, and it took me another 6 months getting rid of my cravings for bread, my addiction to bread, to then really go to all raw, 99% raw. But it was not an easy transition. And the way it happened and that it became successful was me loving myself through it all, was me not beating myself up when I would wake up in the morning and say, okay, no more bread. And in the evening, I've gone to 2 boulangeries and I've had like baguettes this big and I've binged. And to not wake up the next morning feeling terrible physically and not slaughter myself in my mind, but say, you know what? I love you as you are. If you never change, you're worthy of your love. Saying that to myself in the mirror is what I would do. And that's that. Not through willpower, not through discipline, but you've used this word that I love, devotion to myself, to my irrevocable worth. That is the vibration of living foods. That is the vibration of fruit. And so if I cultivate that vibration, I'm not going to stay with foods that are going to be mean to me. And bread was mean to me. And I bring up these foods not to judge them. This is just my own reality, that these foods did not work for me. And so when I started loving myself more through uh, positive self speak, radically loving self speech, um, that internal shift, the external shifted.
That's beautiful. So it was really internal work. It
Right.
was the self-love journey. It was the speaking positive things and loving things to yourself that raised your vibration to the more loving vibration of the foods that you really wanted for yourself. It allowed you to overcome the addiction to what you know was what you loved, but didn't love you back. That toxic relationship, that toxic abusive relationship with the food, well, with the drugs that we call food. That's beautiful, and that makes a lot of sense. And I can relate to that actually. A lot of my better choices came from me starting my affirmation journey and being
Mm,
more more consistent with it, me being more committed to really working on self-love. Like I started a deliberate self-love journey when I started a mental health journey. Uh well, I got serious about my mental health journey like in December of the literally this upcoming December because I was struggling so much mentally, dealing with depression. I had a lot going on inside of me that I haven't addressed literally over the span of the 5 to 10 years. A lot of avoidance, a lot of suppression, and wanting best for myself. When I started my healing journey with the foods, it was because of having a seriously deteriorated state of health.
mm,
And I didn't do it because I had a love for life and a love for my body. I had a fear of death, and that was the motivation. And I just didn't like feeling like I was gonna die. And I had like this sense of impending doom all the time. Like my heart would start palpitating. I would always be short of breath. I couldn't breathe. I'd have scary, like heart related symptoms, like, like angina and symptoms, and just like these feelings of, your check engine light is on and you need to do something about it. And I was always consciously aware of raw veganism and fruitarianism and knew that this could be a path, or just like alkaline eating, because Dr. Sabi, like I did a lot of binging information and material about the lifestyle while being sick, while practicing sick um, choices, and not necessarily connecting with doing something about it. Like I would do something a little bit and then get pulled back into the addiction cycles. And I really struggled with that for a long time until it got to a point where I could not ignore the symptoms in my body. So I had no choice but to start taking action. So I started my journey fear based. It was not
mm,
a love journey because I resented my body while I was making good changes for it, while I was eating more raw foods, while I was eating more fruit, even while I was seeing the positive changes in my body, the weight loss, the clearing of the skin, the mental clarity, I still had resentments that I couldn't eat the toxic stuff. I still wanted to eat it. I still was having feelings of missing out when it came to other people doing things in social settings and things of that sort. But that journey, that struggle became a journey in and of itself, right? So that's when I had to start pivoting and really going inside and thinking, what is it about you wanting to put toxicity inside? Why do you want to suppress? Why do you want to numb? Why do you want this stuff? And then that's when I had to start getting into really going inside and doing the shadow work and really figuring out why didn't I feel worthy enough to
mm,
for happiness, for love, for joy, like releasing these lower vibrational emotions that I wanted to hold on to for whatever reason and wanted to use the foods to cope with, right? So now it's like I've finally released that, and it feels like a weight lifted off of me, like just like, and it was like I didn't even release it. I surrendered and I gave it away because I didn't want it anymore. You know, when they say let go, sometimes it's hard to let go. You don't know how to. It's like I want to let it go. I want to say here, take it, but I just don't know how to not feel like this anymore. You know, it's like it's a program. Um, and it really was when I started a self-love journey, when I became intentional about loving myself, when I said, what do you want, Lachey? I want to be at peace at all times. I want enthusiasm, love, joy, excitement, lust for life. Like I want that. You know, it doesn't have to be all the time. I know that's not realistic. I understand we're human and we go through things in life, we have emotions, but I don't want to be so easily thrown off my center. I want to still be in a centered place and be at peace no matter what's going on around me. And that's what I wanted for myself. And when I made that my goal, it made it so much easier for me to tap into those loving decisions and those loving words and being way more conscious and aware of the negative things that would come to my mind when I was imperfect, but I didn't attach myself to them anymore. I started to become aware of them and then changing the story and rewriting the story and really doing the affirmations and getting in the mirror and saying, I love you and saying you're worthy. And it made it so much easier. It actually physically started getting healthier just from doing that, even not even eating perfectly. Like it's the mindset stuff, connecting with the spirit stuff, really lifting all of that stress and all of that frustration and anger and resentment. You got to get it out of your heart. Doesn't matter how healthy you eat, if that's how you're going to still feel inside. And that's what I learned. And once I started being intentional about connecting with myself and loving myself more, no matter who is in my life, no matter who wants to be in my life, like no matter what's going on in my life, no matter the circumstances, no matter what, it was important for me to maintain the love that I have for myself. And the love you have for yourself will always be reflected in how you choose to live, the choices you make, what you put into your body, who you surround yourself around, the things you do to fulfill yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So I love that it was, you know, it took you a little bit in your transition to finally get to that place, and you had to break up with the food that wasn't loving you, and the people that you know wasn't going to serve your highest good and kind of keep you stuck or stagnant, because we can't force ourselves into relationships that are just out of vibration. You did a lot of things for yourself, and then you evolved to this point, and you remained devoted and committed to your truth, and it's led you all the way up to this point. So that's commendable, and I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people to hear, to know that it's not about the food, you know, completely. The food is a tool, it's an object, it's just what we've been, it's here, it's what we've been uh, designed to consume, but we have to break a lot of programming. We have to learn how to connect with ourselves.
There's so much you said there that was so beautiful, and I feel like there are a couple of things, if you're okay, that I want to actually touch upon that I think round out this discussion because about this particular point. That self-love, I feel like, is not just, at least for me, my experience, and when I guide people, is not just about like, I love you no matter what to yourself, you know, I love you, oh, you slipped up, I love you anyway, don't worry about it, next. Self-love is also about the analysis. It's the shadow work. I call it shadow dancing. It's about saying, I love you, and let's look at what happened there. I think so much there can be this kind of idea of like, just move on, just tomorrow is day one, which I don't believe in day ones. I think it's all a journey. It's all important, even the day you slip ups. Um, and those slip ups become an incredible opportunity if if you look at those dark spaces. So, you know, I've heard, you know, cravings being said to be, you know, bad. And they're like, evil. I actually, for me, was freeing to think about cravings as just being a spotlight on what I needed to heal and to do that shadow work. And that is part of the self love. It's like, I love me no matter what. And what happened in that situation? What led me to wake up being so clear that I was not going to eat the thing that makes me feel sick and end up in that evening having done that? What was it? Like, take the time to do that. Like, that is part of self love. And so I just want to pull attention to that because you talked about the resentment, and a lot of people don't even name what that difficult emotion is. And when we name it and we say, why is it that it feels so overwhelming that I need to suppress it? That's part of the self love work. And also, the other thing you said that I thought was phenomenal was the idea of stating what you want. It is incredible to me how hard it can be for people, women, I think especially sometimes, to state what they desire. What do you desire in life? What do you lust for in life? That has been, especially if you come from a religious background or whatever, there's been such a vilification. There's like this idea that that is base or beneath. But we are spiritual beings, but we've chosen on a soul level to be in these bodies. So what is it that you want to experience in this life? What do you desire? And I think, Lachey, when you state that, like as you did here, I want peace. I want, stating what you want is such a powerful declaration to the universe, to yourself, to the divine, that I am worthy of those things, and here it is what I want. And then on some level, I think you then start subconsciously or consciously choosing the things that are aligned with that. So stating what you want and then doing the shadow work or shadow dancing, I think are huge elements of self-love, in addition to the affirmations and the positive self-talk.
Now, you're dancing. I know that's like an integral part of who you are, your practices. I know you're a professional dancer, but like, how is it a part of your lifestyle? Like, what is
Mm.
dancing to you? What is the importance of it? I know movement in general is important. Is there a difference between moving on an exercise machine versus dancing?
Yes. And I think to show you that, I'm actually going to dance for you right now, very short. And I want to invite you and anyone who's watching this, no music, it's just going to be silent, and you can use your own breath as the music. And I invite you as you watch me, and then I'll tell you in my words. But I think sometimes this is what dance does that words can't do, is you feel it. And I invite you as you watch this, we also said this is about also women's health in general, but just this idea of our womb, our second chakra space, as the seat of creativity, whether or not you choose or want or can be a physical mother, bringing in a physical being. We're all mothering, we're all birthing things, whether it's an idea, a project, our calling work, as I like to call it. And that's second chakra. So the womb, this space here is, for me, it's the seat of feminine power. And so I'm going to dance now, and I invite you as you watch this dance, and it's improvisation, to breathe and understand. Here's part of the answer to your question. Anytime you watch dance, when you watch a dancer, the parts of her brain that are lighting up to move my limb, to help me contract, those are lighting up in your brain. You don't have to move a limb, and those same parts, your cerebellum, parts of your gray matter, are lighting up as well. So may this improvisation be of support to you in whatever way it needs to be. Dance for me is a prayer. Dance is for me is connecting to spirit in a way that goes beyond language, that goes beyond my physical form, but yet it is expressed through the language of my physical form. Dance is my calling. And for many years, I always knew that I was always dancing. I was very quiet. I was very introverted. I would be reading books in the corner. But when that music came on, I was first on the dance floor. I was always a dancer. As a little girl, later on, and I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but not in the way that I found out doctor meant in the Western society later on. But I always thought they had to be separate things, 'cause I was told they were separate things. I was told by even professors, are you going to do this professional dance work or are you going to become a doctor? Like those two things are clearly separate. And I had the opportunity to go to Haiti after that earthquake in 2010. Some of you might remember that. And I went to volunteer in Haiti and from New York City. And by then I was already part of a dance company working part-time as a hospitalist. So I would go to the hospital, I would do the work, and then I would go to, this is soon before my lifestyle change. And then I would go to the company and do my rehearsals and everything. Long story short, I went to Haiti and somebody had seen me dance in New York. Somebody who worked there, one of the nurses who was volunteering, and he asked me to do a performance. And I said, I'm not here as a dancer, I'm here as a doctor. And I thought I was being humble. And what Spirit showed me was that's ego. Because what you've done is you have put yourself in these little boxes and you're not letting Spirit work through you. And this guy asked me 3 times, and then I would always have an excuse. The third time, I don't know what, I was like, fine. And it wasn't going to be perfect. I didn't have my stage. I had a broken down, bombed out shelter with people, nurses and doctors and PAs and people who were volunteering. And I just danced. And when I finished, there was just like tears. People were just, and that's not about me. That's about the medicine working through me. And that was the moment I realized that what's integral in my medicine bag is not just my stethoscope. In fact, more important than my stethoscope is my dance. And that's when slowly over years, I started bringing my dance as part of the medicine, dance performance as part of the medicine I offer people. So dance for me is my calling work, but it's also medicine to my soul. It's also a way I pray and listen to Spirit. It's also, frankly, Lachey, I don't think I've ever said this, it's also part of the way I also process emotions and I release emotions. I do my dance rehearsal in the morning when I'm creating healing dances, but after our call, I have an evening ritual. Every day I write out my gratitude and then I just dance. And it's not dancing to rehearse, it's not dancing for anyone else, it's just dancing my gratitude. It's also dancing my shadows it's my shadow dancing. So it's all those things.
That's beautiful. And I mean, you dance beautifully, and it almost felt like a form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Like just the symbolism that you did, like placing your hand in your heart, certain energy centers in your body. Like it's so much deeper than like, you know, just even the word dance. It just seems like you can't even put a word on that kind of energy. So that was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And they loved it in the comments as well. So that's beautiful. All right. So I did talk about wanting to touch on this about the woman's health as far as, so you're a raw vegan and you have a child. How do you just have your one?
Yes, I always wanted to be a mama of one. I could easily, and we never had a pregnancy scare because one thing I do want women to know is that we can know exactly when we're fertile during our cycle. And especially when we eat this way, when we eat in a healthy way, your cycle will be regular and healthy, and you will know when you're fertile and when you're not. And so through that understanding, I've never had an unwanted pregnancy. I've always wanted to be a mama of one, and I'm a mama of one, and I give thanks for that.
That's beautiful. So you obviously had a child as a raw vegan. You
Yes.
didn't break your raw veganism just because you got pregnant. A lot of women do that. You know, a lot of women will start a raw vegan journey or even a vegan journey, just a plant-based journey, and they'll have, you know, they'll get pregnant and then they're told by their medical practitioners that they're going to need protein, and they say that in a sense of animal proteins, and then they start consuming animal flesh again because they are told they have to have a safe pregnancy. um, Now obviously that was not your experience. I would love to know more about, maybe there are women out there who are raw vegans or have started a raw vegan journey, became more fertile because they're cleansing and healing their bodies. And now they're kind of like at a crossroads on whether or not they should continue on being raw vegan because they've never had a raw vegan pregnancy. What would you say to that?
Yes. I'm so glad you brought this up, Lachey. So I've guided many women in healthy pregnancies, and more than one who were struggling with fertility, who paid thousands, $10,000s on hormone help to get fertile, and we're still not getting fertile, and then came to me, and through a whole food plant diet or based became fertile. And here's the reason why this works. And here's the reason why anyone who tells you to go into animal protein or leave a plant diet or plant-based diet to become pregnant or to have a healthy pregnancy, that's bunk. It's nonsense. And here's why. We are nature. And what I mean by that is that we are nature. I get to look out every day in nature, and I feel so blessed. We are no different than other species in the fact that we have a species specific diet. You don't see chipmunks eating the food of lions or the food of birds. Homo sapiens are no different. And what we are frugivorous beings, which means that our body, our anatomy, our physiology, evolutionarily, we have been designed and are aligned with a fruit based diet that is specifically fruit, seed bearing fruit with leafy greens that are palatable, not hard to digest if need be. That really is the diet we're meant to eat based on our color vision, our opposable thumbs to pick the fruit, the length of our digestive tract, the enzymes we create. We don't have uricase. Uricase is uric acid enzyme. It's an enzyme and that's why people get gout. Carnivores have that. They're meant to break down meat. They're meant to break down those things when they eat it. We don't. We create amylase, which is a starch or carbohydrate breaking down enzyme. These are just a few examples. And so what I'm getting at is that when you stick to the diet you're meant to, at least primarily, you have no worries then of being able to propagate your species, i.e., have a child. And so I was 42 when I conceived, and I conceived when I wanted to conceive within the first cycle of attempting to conceive. And I had been told before that I couldn't get pregnant because of my age. I'd been told that by a healer. And it was not an issue. And my pregnancy was joyful. It was easeful. I was dancing. I danced my baby out. I danced till the end. I was running till the 7th month of pregnancy. I effortlessly released the weight that I needed to. There was no swelling, no preeclampsia. There was none of that. And I'm not unique. If you speak to most women, if not all, uh, who are eating healthy raw vegan diets, they will tell you a similar story. My birthing was actually 3 days long. I thought it would be much shorter, but it was at home It was ecstatic. It was orgasmic. It was just me and my husband and the baby we were birthing. And it was one of the most liberating and arguably, I think, the most empowering thing I've ever done. And it was made possible by me sticking to my species specific diet.
Beautiful. I mean, well said. And for me, it just doesn't make common sense for us to be fearful of eating the most nutrient dense food options that we actually have available to us. It's not logical, in my opinion, to stop eating what made your body healthy enough to actually give birth, to conceive, and then go back to the degenerative dietary choices because that's what mostly everybody else does. And unfortunately, that's why many children come into the world with health issues already. They're not
Mm-hmm.
health issues that they earned, but now they have the karma of their parents' dietary choices or the choices of their mothers while they were in the womb. Um, and then also the vaccinations and things of that sort. Now, as a doctor, what are your, like, I don't want to get all up in your business as far as like your child and the vaccination schedule, but is that something you subscribe to? Does it depend on the vaccination? Like, do you think that it's needed for some, or like what are your opinions there when it comes to the vaccination schedule with the children?
Yes. I'm going to answer that. I'm not going to ignore that question. It's a very sensitive one, but I am going to answer that. I think it's the first time I've actually talked about that ever online, but I want to. Before that, protein, I just have to say, I feel like I just went over it because I feel like I'm like, are people still asking that or worried about that? Um, you're building a child within you, right? So arguably your protein needs are the biggest they might ever be. And I did that on a fruit-based raw diet. Not even like a lot of, I didn't do tons of nuts and seeds. I didn't do lots of sprouts. It was a fruit heavy raw diet. And I bring that up to say that there's a big misconception about protein needs. The way they decided about the RDA, the recommended daily allowance of protein, was through rat studies, not even humans. That's how they decided how much protein people need. And rats need more protein than we do. Again, not the same species. And then not only did they decide, okay, rats need so and so amount of protein, they actually increase that number to be safe. If you're eating enough calories of fruit, of greens, eating enough calories of whole plant foods, even if it's all fruit, you will get enough protein. I cannot stress that enough. You will get enough amino acids to build protein. Eating animal protein into your system, bring that into your system, is often too much. Protein in animals is so huge, not to mention all the other issues that come with eating animals, that it's so hard on your kidneys and your organ systems. And that is more stress on your body when you're trying to have a child, build a child. So I just want to clear up the protein thing because it's, I get so annoyed when I keep hearing
It's
it. So I hope that's helpful.
one of those questions that
Ah,
get under my skin. It's
yeah,
almost like one of those questions. I don't know. It's like it almost feels like we're being trolled with that question at this point because
yes.
it's like you ask about so many people have asked. I'm pretty sure every person who asked has seen the answer numerous times, but they ignore it because they want to act. It's almost like a way to undermine the lifestyle. They think that question just shuts down any credibility, so to speak, of living this way or perpetuating this lifestyle. It's just annoying. And protein is definitely the most overrated, like animal protein is the most overrated concept when it comes to human health and nutrition. It's like we're always talking about, oh, what about protein? Or you're not getting enough nutrients. You're not getting the vital nutrients that you need only eating plants. But most people are so filled up in their guts with backed up sludgy waste that they have yet to release. They're not even able to absorb the nutrients they think they're getting eating the meats and eating whatever it is that they think is required for adequate human health. So it's like we aren't even connected with our bodies enough to sit here and act like we're all forensic food scientists and we know everything that the body needs when it comes to the relationship with the modern day diet of the food pyramid and all the processed things that we've kind of been conditioned to see as food that sit on shelves with like 2, 3, 4 year shelf lives because they're loaded with all these agents, these caking agents, and these preservatives and all these things. So the disconnect there is just not even rooted in logic. It's just all manufactured plant based things that we have been accustomed to consuming, which is why we're sick, fat, and nearly dead, ultimately. And it's like there's this huge resistance to get back to the way that we're meant to live because of how addictive the other side of it is. And it's just really a bunch of addicts and junkies trying to justify their addiction so that they don't have to stop, ultimately. And they like to cross they like to kind of cross it over into pregnancy and make everything seem so dangerous. Oh, that's dangerous. Like I've had a couple of watermelon photos of me going viral. This is dangerous. You're pushing this dangerous information from medical practitioners. I've been a nurse for 23 years. This is dangerous. Okay. Then I'll just be living a dangerous life on the edge.
And I can tell you, having worked in hospitals, there's a lot of danger in those hospitals and what's being given to people. And I think that's a good segue to vaccinations. And here's what I'll say. I am a licensed, board certified physician, licensed in the States, and there are definitely some restrictions on what I'm allowed to say, supposedly. But here's what I will say that I have no problem saying. And if they come for me, they come for me. Read your ingredients. Read your ingredients for everything. Okay, you don't have to read ingredients of the apple you pick from a tree. That says it all. But anything that's packaged that has anything more than one thing in it, hopefully a plant food, know what those are. What are those ingredients? The same thing is for vaccinations. The same thing is for anything you're going to inject into your body. There's a list of ingredients. I went for a cleaning to the dentist the other few weeks ago. And oh, that's a side note. People who are worried about fruit in their teeth. I haven't had one cavity in 13 years on a fruit-based diet. My only cavity I had was before this lifestyle. My teeth, my dentist is like, your teeth are perfect. And the only thing I get are stains. It's a chromogenic bacteria thing that I have. So I go for cleaning. But the reason I'm telling this story is at the end of the cleaning, he's like, yep, perfect as usual, like no cavities. But you got some stains there, and I can just inject of something so that your gums don't feel any pain. Because he was like really going at those stains, and my gum started hurting while I was in the dentist. I have no gum sensitivity outside. And he's like, yeah, I'll just give you something to numb the pain. And I was like, oh, what do you want to give me? And he's like, oh, it's just this. He didn't know I was a doctor. He was like, oh, it's just this thing. And I was like, can you show me? And already he's like, why is this woman's asking so many questions already? And he brought it out, and it was like GABA, which is a neurosedative, and fluoride, and some other things, and some coloring. But my point is, this is happens all the time, that people are just like, you go to a health professional and they just extend their arms or their children's arms without asking, what is in that thing you're about to give my child or me? But the same thing happens when they go to supermarkets. When we go to supermarkets, we read heart healthy, will help you lose weight, high in omega-3, and you never flip it and read the ingredients, ever. I work with people all the time. And so my answer about vaccinations is do your research. And the research is there. It's very clear. There's a whole organization that deals with vaccine adverse effects. And the amount of money that is settled in that courtroom is horrifying. Just Google it. And then start asking your pediatrician before they vaccinate your child, what is in that ingredient? What is in this vaccine? A lot of vaccines also come all bunched together. MMR, Tdap. Some things are bunched together for viruses and bacteria that are like obsolete. And then the ingredients in these things, parts of other animals, just the research is there. And I think when you just decide, I want to look, we're back to looking, right, Lachey? We're back to like, you have to be willing to look. And that's self-love. And that is also about releasing fear. Because let me be very clear, 99.9, more than that, of percent of parents are just trying to do right by their children. They're just trying to keep their child protected. So I'm not about anti-vaccine, pro-vaccine. I'm about pro-child, pro-family, pro-empowerment. Do your research and then think about this. Like, do I want to put that into my child, or would I rather perhaps have a different paradigm of what it looks like to prevent dis-ease in my child, i.e. feed them the right things, i.e. take away toxic chemicals from their environment as much as possible, i.e. healthy lifestyle choices in terms of exercise and movement and spiritual, and getting rid of fear, the fear-based mindset. The short answer to your question is my child was born at home, and the only medicine that he's ever received has been his parents' love, his grandparents' love, his family's love, and healthy, whole food, plant diet, and lots of sunshine and lots of exercise. And for that, I am blessed.
Beautiful. I mean, perfect answer. It's true. Anything you're going to put into your body, um, common sense says to just know what you're putting into your body, because at least you're consenting to get into a contract with what you're consuming rather than just blindly trusting anyone with your life. You know, it's about self advocacy, it's about the advocacy of the children that you bring into this world. Because if something happens to them, ultimately it's you who's going to have to take care of them. You know, we put a lot of trust in those outside of us, these institutions, the doctors, the licensed professionals. You know, like, don't get me wrong, if I am in a car accident and I'm in critical condition, please take me to the nearest emergency room. I want the best surgeon that you have available so that, you know, I have another lease for in life, so to speak. So I'm not against um, medical practice. I'm not against the concept of it. However, the the way in which it's practiced now, it's not preventative. It is just kind of like come sick. It's almost like they're auto, they call the auto body shop, they call the auto body shops for cars. But I feel like hospitals are body shops for human bodies, you know, because, you know, you go in there with all these illnesses and they compartmentalize the human body, and then they have a department for the head, a department for the heart, a department for the blood, a department for the kidneys. You know, they kind of chop it up into all the different systems. And we go in there, and then they say, well, this organ system is failing. We're either going to have to remove it, or we're going to have to find you a donor. You know, but it's never there is a solution for this problem. It's now we're here. Now we have to just help you stabilize and maintain this way of being while you slowly deteriorate. We're just going to make you comfortable while you slowly deteriorate. We're going to give you a suppressant of your symptoms, so you're not going to feel as miserable as you actually are, but you're going to have to come back in here because you also didn't really read the ingredients on the medications that we gave you, and now that's messing up another organ system in your body. It's just that it doesn't encourage lifestyle change. It doesn't encourage regeneration. It just kind of like have us believing that we're these infallible human beings, that just we're just born to die. Basically, you age, you're going to die because you're simply aging, instead of self-preservation and eating in a way that perpetuates life. We're just like programmed to be on this frequency of death culture. You need to eat dead body parts in order to get nutrients. And it's like this weird upside down that we're in. So, but I'm not against the surgeons, the ones who are good with their hands and they know everything about the human anatomy. And we go in there in emergency situations and we need trauma care, and they can stabilize us and they can bring us back to a at least baseline consciousness while we figure it out. Because I'm not against hospitals and the medical institution, but generally how it's being practiced in this like anti-life way where it's not preventative. It's just more so, okay, now you're here. How much? I don't know. So definitely it's about knowing what you're putting inside of you and taking way more responsibility for our lives and not being so quick to destroy ourselves with our lifestyles and then go to the hospital demanding answers from someone who wasn't there when you were messing up your health with your food and your lifestyle and your stress and alcoholism and cigarettes and all of that. It's like we have to, and it's funny is we have to also be convinced that it's food and
Mm-hmm.
that is messing up our health too, which is like interesting.
Yeah, I love that you said that. That was also well said. And responsibility. And for me, responsibility is not a burden, it's liberation, because that's empowerment. If I'm responsible for myself, it means that yes, I can make bad choices, but I can also take myself out of that. I don't have to rely on somebody else to do that. In terms of chronic conditions, my sister is an amazing emergency room physician, and she's a service to people she works for. So, like you said, the trauma, the emergencies, absolutely, there's a role for that kind of work. But what's killing most people is not that. What's killing most people is the slow and horrifying death of chronic illnesses, complications of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and all of that is so heavily affected by what we put into our mouths, what we choose to put on our skin, in our mouths, ingest also, with our eyes. That's part of consumption. And so taking responsibility for all of that is key to our liberation.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Pivoting back to women's health, right? So you had painful periods before you got on this lifestyle, and you said you have essentially healed your body or allowed your body to heal by creating the environment for it to do so over the course of this time because of the lifestyle choices you have consciously made up until this point. So it is possible for a woman to heal her womb if she has endometriosis, which is something that I was diagnosed with and actually had a surgery for, or PCOS or fibroids, and all of the things that many women now suffer from because of the standard American diet. Uh, as far as women's health, I know dietary choices hold a lot of responsibility for that. Do you also think that trauma, like life experiences, also can contribute to women health issues?
Absolutely. I think of myself as a holistic physician for a reason. And, you know, it's not just what pathophysiologically, so in terms of like what happens to the organ system. So, for example, all those things you mentioned, endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS, the underlying pathophysiologic reason for that, the organ, the body, biochemical reason for that is estrogen dominance, is that we have an epidemic of estrogen dominance in the Western world. And the reason for that is that people are taking in estrogen, men and women, but in women, it manifests as these things you mentioned, diseases that you mentioned. xenoestrogens, which literally means foreign estrogens. And what they do is that they overcome our system in terms of hormonal balance. So we're taking xenoestrogens in from animal products because guess what? When you eat milk, when you eat any flesh of any animal, pork, whatever it is, you're taking in the hormones of the animal, of course, because every animal is producing hormones. I don't care if it's organic or not. And so you're taking in those estrogens. And from also, think about cow dairy. These are cows that have been, and I don't use this word lightly, raped. They've been forcibly impregnated over and over and over again to keep them pregnant and lactating to give you milk. That's what's happening. You've got to look. You've got to look. And so think about all the hormones that are just circulating through that mare, through that animal, and that you're now ingesting through the milk. That you call mozzarella, or whatever pretty name has been put on that. That's what you're taking in, is the secretions, the mammary secretions of a raped female cow whose milk is meant for her child. A child that was taken from her. Always. They never, and then you know what happens to that little child. So sorry, Lachey, this is the things that, and it's so interesting because now as a mother, I don't think you need to become a physical mother, but now I still breastfeed my child. And by the way, that's been a breeze. You will never have issues with breast milk supply when you're eating your species-specific diet. But now it's even crazier to me that people are suckling on the milk of other animals. Can you circle me back to your question? Because I was going to get to it, but I'm like now feeling a lot of feelings around what I'm sharing.
No, it's okay. So the question was about if people trap trauma in our womb and affect our reproductive health just as much as the dietary choices.
Yes, I do want to talk about the dietary because the xenoestrogens are found in animals. So just if you're thinking endometriosis for some whatever reason has nothing to do with my diet, I know, Lachey, you know differently, but many people might never know that if I'm eating too many of these estrogens, I then get endometriosis or fibroids or PCOS, or just heavy periods. And so cutting out animal products, but also hormone disruptors that cause too much estrogen are found in a lot of hair products, in a lot of skin products, commercial skin products, in plastics. That's one of the biggest forms of hormone disruptors. Drinking water from plastic bottles that have been sitting on the shelf for God knows how long. So cleaning out your pantry, cleaning out your home is going to do so much to decrease those xenoestrogens. That's a pathophysiology, but yes, I talked about second chakra. When you saw me do this in the dance, that's a sign of the yoni. That's a sign of our womb. And I brought it up to the heart because there is, the pelvis is weight-wise for women, that's our power center. This is where you feel that grounding. You feel that sense of stability. So if you've had trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, sexual trauma, ancestral trauma, that is affecting your root chakra, which is right below the sacral chakra that holds your womb. If your root chakra is not strong, has been affected poorly, it literally cannot hold up your second chakra. And your second chakra then begins to manifest the dis-ease that comes from root chakra issues. So trauma, absolutely, they literally sit on top of each other. The root, the root chakra, and the second chakra, which is your womb. And there's also been studies to show women who have gone through sexual trauma, there's more incidences of a lot of these womb issues, and not just because of sexually transmitted diseases. It is because of that energetic body of not feeling safe. Root chakra is all about safety, It's all about family. It's all about, I am secure in this world. And if you don't feel that way, one of the biggest ways that manifests is in the pelvis. It's in our wombs. Because again, there are power centers. So if you feel powerless, if you feel insecure, if you feel like, again, I am not safe, then that energy is literally stuck there. And then it produces uh, emotional, which can then go into physical issues. So cortisol, I'll show you, because people can be like, oh, that seems too woo-woo. Cortisol is one of the biggest stress hormones, and most people know about that. Cortisol causes something called progesterone steal. It literally will suck away progesterone from your body. And that leads to estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance just means your estrogen progesterone ratio is out of whack. And that then leads to all these physical issues. So here's a very clear example of how mind, emotional trauma increases your cortisol, leads to progesterone steal, bam, estrogen dominance, and then the expression of things like fibroids and PCOS and endometriosis.
That's a beautiful answer. I actually just wrote down cortisol, progesterone, steal, because it gives me a reminder to keep your stress levels down.
Yes. Yes.
um, you know, because I've been on a health journey for a while, and I've had my imperfect stints of going back and forth with the unhealthy vegan foods. So, but most of the time I'm eating all fruit, most of the time I'm eating all raw. And I'll still have these issues with weakness in my womb. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be. However, I feel like most of that is just a manifestation from the mental health issues that I was
Mm-hmm.
under for the longest time, which is why I made it not even a goal to eat better, to be raw, to be nothing. My goal is to be at peace, be happy, be filled with love and joy, because I knew that that is what would be required to get rid of the stress, to take away of the depression, to rebalance the hormones. Because when you're in that state, you're throwing off the hormone balance, and you're stealing the progesterone away from the body, and now you've got that overproduction of estrogen in the body, and now it's creating all of these issues and these illnesses, diseases, and the things that come along with it. So it's just that reminder to be mindful, of the mind, to be mindful of the spirit, to be mindful, to go through life not allowing anything to bother you. Just let God figure it out. Just get up every day and do your part. And I think that a lot of times it's easier said than done, but we have to make a decision to not allow the external reality, to allow the circumstances surrounding us to really affect us in that way when it comes to our stress. If there's people in your life, you have to start really figuring out how you're going to release them if they cause that. Like, we have to really start facing ourselves and facing our realities and the circumstances we've created, because it's not always just what you consume. There's a lot of people who are vegans, who are plant-based, a lot of women who are vegans or plant-based, who still have um, PCOS and still have endometriosis and still have fibroids, and they think that they're eating healthy. But in a lot of times, we have addressed what we eat, but we haven't addressed that toxic relationship we're in that stresses us out and makes it hard for us to sleep, and where we feel unsafe in our own homes, or we that root chakra is just not rooting. It's not rooted.
Yeah.
So it is important to have the holistic vision of our health, because we stop at what we eat, and we kind of leave it there, and we obsess over the food, and we get stuck almost in like this vortex of eating and food, and it becomes an obsession, whether it's healthy eating or unhealthy eating, while not addressing the deeper things going on in our life that will, no matter what you're consuming, you're still dealing with these other things, that toxic job environment that you're in. It's the only way you make your money, but you feel like you still got to be there. It's we have to be brave enough to choose our peace, no matter what that costs.
So well said. So well said. And that's been absolutely my experience, that the food is not in isolation. The food is a reflection. It's a reflection, actually. That, and it's a good circle back to what we talked about in the beginning, like when you focus actually on the self-love, and that includes healthy boundaries. I have a book in which I talk about me coming from being a completely suicidally depressed medical student to living what I call my most delicious life that I continue to live. And I talk about that journey and share how people can also heal. And one of the big things, and every chapter, one is on meditation, one is on nature, another one is the best love. It's not just the nutrition, it's not what we're putting in our mouths, it's also what we're putting in our eyes. What are you paying attention to? What are you watching? Do you eat your beautiful bowl of watermelon, but then you put on the TV and watch toxic shows, or scroll on Instagram for things that you just know are not high vibe. And I'm not saying that as judgment, but it's just for you to be aware that that is also a way that you are eating. That's also part of your diet. And if those things are not in alignment, pretty soon you're not going to be eating just watermelon or whatever it is, or whole food diet for very long, because it's not in alignment. And it's all connected. And ask yourself, like, why do I feel pulled to watch this? Why do I feel called to watch people who are struggling so much? Is it because it makes me feel better about this situation that I'm in, that I know that I deserve better for? Doing that work again, the shadow dancing, the looking, and understanding that every facet of your life um, is part of your nourishment or toxicity.
Beautiful, well said. Our input, our input will always determine the output.
Mm-hmm.
What we consume, everything is food. Everything is food. Like the it's food, but the thing is we live in a consumption based
Mm-hmm.
world. So we're like we live as consumers, even though we're not really designed or created to be consumers. We're only supposed to be charging our battery and creating. We're meant to be creators and producers and give back to the world what we get from it. But it seems we just like to consume. We like to sit there, we like to eat anything and everything. Then we like to sit down, and they call it binge watching. That's funny, right? Like to binge watch, to sit in front of a TV and consume all of this. It's like binge watching TV is like equivalent to binge watching a bunch of toxic standard American diet food with empty calories. Like, so watching like a program filled with like murder, sexual promiscuity, just the wrong messaging, so to speak. Like, do we really want to program ourselves and our society in this way? It's almost like binge watching an empty calories of consumption of whatever's just on at the time because it's entertaining and this and that, but we're allowing ourselves to be subconsciously programmed and desensitized from the bottom of the barrel activity of society, just like death. You see, you're entertained by people killing each other. We're entertained by the casual sex culture that has been normalized because of TV. Like, we are just, it's funny because it's like, it's not even funny actually, but it has reflected in our reality in a lot of ways with the music. There's a lot, I feel like I can remember, I could feel the evolution as a child from the music that I kind of grew up on when I was like younger to what the radio was becoming over time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just kind of remember like happy, feel good summer music, and then it evolved into more murder, more sex, more drugs, more even when the music wasn't 100% wholesome, like the rap music, it's like the rappers went from being drug dealers to drug users. It's like they went from selling the drugs, glorifying that, or at least just sharing their story, if that was just their story, and that's how they express themselves through their music. That is what was chosen to be broadcasted to the world audience. And then it evolved or devolved rather into um, Molly Percocets. Molly Percocets. Like, really though? Like, this is what we doing? We just gonna start selling the drugs out to the world. We're gonna chant the drugs and everybody's gonna listen and dance to this. And it's just like I could feel the evolution though from like music not being that bad on the radio. Like it wasn't always good, wholesome music, but they were really like mindful of like what actually made the mainstream radio wave compared to, there was the DVD set that you could only listen to if you bought the album versus what they would actually put on the radio because of
Mm-hmm.
values and things of that sort. And it's like they slowly like groomed us into accepting what we actually sit there and watch now on streaming, and now kids watch it, and now it's just like that's our food though. And that's why society is kind of chaotic right now.
Mm. I love the idea. Not just idea, the practice is something I do every day. And I find in what you brought up reminds me to, brings up to share, is this idea of creation before consumption, if you are going to consume. And doing that in every facet of your life that is about consumption. So, as much as you're able to, right? So, before I'm even going to look at emails or social media, I've woken up, I've listened to that voice through prayer, through meditation. I've done my dance rehearsal. I've done just certain things that whatever works for you that speak to you are your creative outlet and your way of also tapping into your own inner wisdom before you go looking for information or entertainment from outside. So the idea of creating and listening before consuming. And now I think about it, I usually don't even break my actual fast breakfast until 12 or 1. And so there's something about that too. It's the idea of like letting my body, just listening to my body um, before I put something in, even in the day. But doing definitely that with media and input. Just that practice alone, I think, will give a lot of people that sense of like just a little bit more of that observer eye of how Lachey just beautifully talked about that evolution of music. So many people can't even see that because they're so in it, because they wake up and immediately their headphones go on or immediately they're on social media scrolling. So there's a constant that your own voice has been completely uh, just squashed. You don't even know if you have a voice. You don't even know what you want. So that simple practice, I think, can be life-changing.
Beautiful. So, I mean, we're about an hour, almost 30 minutes into this. We're going to wrap it up. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience? The floor is yours.
Mm.
Anything on your heart? Do you have any services that you provide? You have such a healing energy about you. I would hope that you've got some sort of community that, if people were interested, they could be a part of. Floor is
Thank you
yours.
for asking. Thank you for asking, Lachey. And thank you for this platform. I love what you are doing. I love you're such a gift in your authenticity, in your your openness and vulnerability. It shows, it's, for me, it's one of those beautiful testimonials of how vulnerability is a superpower. You exhibit that so beautifully. So thank you for what you're sharing with us. Um, my book, Delicious Healing, I feel like can be very helpful to many people who, if you're just like, how do I go about just becoming more of what I want to be? Healing, whatever it is you want to heal, mental, physical, emotional. So I recommend that. That's, you can find on my website, drtumijohnson.com, drtumijohnson.com. You could, there's a freebie there, a free chapter, so you can take a look at what that feels like. I have a YouTube channel in which I share things like what I eat in a day. I have a lot of videos there about my raw vegan pregnancy and just my also healing dance clips to support you and inspire you in your health journey. I have a membership program in which I can guide you even more. And I'm guiding that beautiful community in living, it's called Your Delicious Life, in doing just that. Having your best body and life, your most deliciously healthy body and life that you've always desired. And so I do that through health Q&As every month, the personal vlogs where I show the members how I'm living my life behind the scenes, through my healing dances, and workshops every month. So that's on offer. So just check out my website, drtumijohnson.com, and you can see what's on offer there. But those are the main things. I do one-on-one sessions, but less and less, and because I'm pretty booked and a long waiting list. So the membership program is the best way to work with me more intensely. But just checking out my book, checking out my YouTube, which is free, can be a way to get more guidance from me. And I have healing dances. So I will mention this really quickly. I have dances that I pair with lectures. So if you want to get rid of digestive pain and bloating, I have something called Digestive Fire. You watch the dance or you move along with me, and then you get a lecture on how to heal your digestion. And the two of them, the dance and the information together, I have found is transformational for people. I have one called Crown, which is about healing ancestral trauma and also loving your crown, healing hair and scalp issues, hair loss. It's called Crown. And there are a couple more digital dances you can check on my website. And I think the last thing I just want to say beyond what's on offer is I invite you to just right now, just take a deep breath, reconnect with your breath. And just for fun, let's do that one more time. Just take a deep breath in and let it go. Yes. I invite you to place your hands on your heart space. And I invite you to just let the words I speak now wash over you, and may they be healing. For you to know that you always have your breath. It is literal inspiration that you always have available to you. It is literally your connection to divine, to spirit, to wisdom that you always have available to you. So keep breathing. Know that you are nature. Know that you are love. Know that you are worthy of everything that you desire.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Tumi. All right, there we go. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for coming on, sharing your energy and your presence. I really enjoyed this discussion. The viewers, the live viewers, we've maintained a decent amount of viewers doing this, and they seem to be really engaging and they got a lot from this. And I appreciate your perspective as a healer, your perspective as a dancer, your perspective as a medical professional, and just your perspective as a woman and as like a beautiful spirit and human being. I love you so much. I definitely would love to collaborate with you again on the future. And if you ever want me, like more formally on your platform, I'm always open to that. And yeah, thank you so much.
I
And
love
until
you too, Lachey. Thank you.
you're welcome. So we're going to close out. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. You actually just joined the first collaboration I've had on my new podcast, Betterism. And I look forward to bringing more magnificent people to you guys. And until then, happy healing. And I love you so much. Bye.